The Secret of Unlocking Your Potential. How Carl Jung explained internal struggles. Chapter 1. The internal contradiction. Most people misunderstand internal struggle. They describe problems through symptoms: lack of discipline, low confidence, fear of failure, loss of motivation. But behavior often reveals something deeper. A person may consciously want progress while unconsciously resisting it. They attempt change while repeatedly sabotaging themselves. They seek clarity while continuously creating confusion. The contradiction appears irrational, but psychologically, it is structured. Human beings are not fully unified internally. The mind contains competing impulses, conflicting emotions, and unconscious motivations operating simultaneously. One part seeks stability. Another seeks transformation. One part wants recognition. Another fears exposure. This creates psychological friction, not dramatic collapse, but subtle resistance shaping behavior daily. Hesitation before action, unexplained exhaustion, self-sabotage, chronic inconsistency. Most people interpret these patterns as weakness, but Carl Jung believed many internal struggles are conflicts between conscious identity and unconscious psychological forces. The conflict is internal, and most individuals remain unaware of the hidden structure producing it. Because consciousness rarely sees the full personality. It sees only the version of the self it identifies with. Everything else disappears beneath awareness. Chapter 2. The surface level misunderstanding. Human culture interprets human behavior mechanically. Productivity becomes proof of psychological health. Confidence becomes proof of self-knowledge. Social performance becomes proof of stability. But these assumptions hide deeper contradictions. A person may appear functional while remaining psychologically divided internally. Many people construct identities designed for adaptation. They learn which traits society rewards and slowly organize themselves around those expectations. Confidence is rewarded. Doubt is hidden. Composure is rewarded. Vulnerability is suppressed. Over time, the personality becomes performative, not intentionally deceptive, structurally adaptive. The individual identifies with the socially approved version of the self while distancing from incompatible emotions and impulses. This creates a dangerous misunderstanding. Internal conflict no longer appears psychological. It appears behavioral. Exhaustion becomes laziness. Emotional contradiction becomes weakness. Internal tension becomes lack of discipline. But repression does not remove psychological material. It only pushes it outside conscious awareness. And what remains unconscious continues influencing behavior indirectly. Jung called this hidden mechanism the shadow. Chapter 3. Jung's shadow. According to Jung, consciousness represents only a small portion of the mind. Beneath it exists the unconscious, a psychological domain containing rejected emotions, denied impulses, fears, and incompatible traits. Jung called much of this rejected material the shadow. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is psychologically excluded material. Everything the conscious identity refuses to recognize gradually accumulates there. Aggression, fear, resentment, dependency, vulnerability, need for control. Even positive traits can become unconscious. A person conditioned to appear agreeable may repress assertiveness. Someone obsessed with rationality may suppress emotional sensitivity. Children quickly learn which behaviors receive approval and which provoke rejection. Traits associated with acceptance move into consciousness. Traits associated with danger move into repression, but repression creates a psychological illusion. The conscious mind assumes what is rejected no longer exists. Jung argued the opposite. What is suppressed becomes unconscious, not eliminated. And unconscious material continues operating indirectly through anxiety, projection, compulsive behavior, emotional overreaction. The more rigidly individuals attempt to control their self-image, the stronger unconscious compensation becomes. Denied aspects of the self do not disappear. They accumulate pressure beneath awareness. Chapter 4. Why people become divided. Jung believed every individual develops a persona. The persona is the social mask, a psychological identity constructed for adaptation and approval. The persona itself is not the problem. The problem begins when people become over-identified with it. When the social mask replaces psychological reality, fear becomes weakness. Sensitivity becomes embarrassment. Uncertainty becomes unacceptable. Instead of understanding these traits consciously, The personality suppresses them, but suppression fragments the psyche. The individual becomes divided between the visible self and the denied self. This fragmentation creates internal resistance. A person may consciously desire success while unconsciously fearing visibility. They may seek intimacy while resisting vulnerability. The personality becomes internally contradictory, not because the individual lacks intelligence, but because conflicting psychological systems are operating simultaneously. Jung viewed psychological suffering through this structural lens. Internal conflict was evidence of disconnection between conscious identity and unconscious reality. And the more disconnected the personality becomes, the more energy is required to maintain control. Eventually, psychological exhaustion emerges. Chapter 5: The Behavioral Consequences. The unconscious rarely announces itself directly. It expresses itself behaviorally. Jung argued that individuals frequently project unconscious traits onto others. A person consumed by hidden insecurity may obsessively criticize weakness. Someone repressing aggression may perceive hostility everywhere. The reaction appears disproportionate because unconscious material amplifies it. The same principle appears in compensatory behavior. Perfectionism may conceal fear of inadequacy. Excessive politeness may conceal resentment. Constant superiority may conceal fragile self-worth. This is why self-sabotage often appears irrational. The conscious personality pursues progress while unconscious fears interfere beneath awareness. The individual experiences confusion because consciousness sees only visible intention, not the hidden resistance underneath it. Jung believed unresolved unconscious conflict consumes enormous psychic energy. Attention becomes fragmented, behavior becomes inconsistent. Internal tension increases. Yet modern culture treats these symptoms superficially. People attempt to optimize productivity without understanding the unconscious structures shaping behavior. Chapter 6: The Modern Crisis. Modern environments reward performance continuously. Social media intensifies this condition. Identity becomes increasingly externalized. People learn to construct socially optimized versions of themselves for constant visibility. The result is fragmentation: professional identity, social identity, digital identity, private identity. Maintaining these fragmented identities requires constant psychological management. Modern individuals become more connected to external perception than internal reality. The personality adapts toward visibility rather than coherence. This creates alienation. People remain socially connected while psychologically disconnected from themselves. External validation temporarily stabilizes identity, but it does not resolve unconscious contradiction. The more successful the persona becomes socially, the harder it becomes to confront incompatible aspects of the self honestly. This produces exhaustion, not simply from work, but from continuous self-monitoring and suppression. Modern culture teaches performance, rarely self-understanding. Chapter 7: Jung's interpretation of human potential. Jung did not view psychological growth as self-perfection. He viewed it as integration, a gradual reduction of internal contradiction. This process became central to his theory of individuation. The goal is not eliminating weakness. It is reducing fragmentation because human potential remains restricted. When large portions of the personality operate unconsciously, the mind wastes energy maintaining internal division, suppressing impulses, defending identity structures, avoiding contradiction. Jung believed this trapped energy could become available again through conscious integration, not through denial, not through perfection, but through awareness. Fear can be acknowledged without dominating behavior. Aggression can be understood without becoming destructive. Vulnerability can exist without collapsing identity. This creates psychological coherence. The personality becomes less divided internally. Behavior becomes more stable because unconscious resistance decreases. Potential emerges not from constructing flawless identity, but from reducing the distance between conscious identity and psychological reality. Chapter 8: Final Reflection. Most people believe their greatest obstacles exist outside themselves. Circumstances, competition, lack of opportunity, lack of confidence. Jung suggested a more unsettling possibility. The greatest barrier to human potential may be internal self-avoidance. The mind resists what consciousness refuses to examine. People seek control while avoiding contradiction. They pursue clarity while resisting self-confrontation. This creates a hidden cycle. The conscious personality moves forward, The unconscious resists beneath awareness, behavior becomes inconsistent. Internal tension increases. Jung viewed human beings as psychologically divided organisms attempting to maintain stability between conscious identity and unconscious reality. Projection, self-sabotage, emotional overreaction, compulsive social performance. These are not isolated flaws, they are structural expressions of unresolved psychological contradiction. For Jung, human potential was never simply a question of achievement. It was a question of psychological wholeness, which best comment below.